The wedding party was at its peak when the mother-in-law stood up with a toast in her hands. His words echoed like a sunny thunder, defining the daughter-in-law, our financial salvation. Now my son will be able to pay off his 15 million debts. The young wife froze, realizing the size of the trap she had fallen into. But the worst was yet to come. When his father got up to speak, the tension in the hall reached the limit. Good night, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my channel. Today I bring a story that will mess with you. Enjoy. Lydia Stanislavovna Volgina was sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by piles of accounts and notifications. The morning of October was grey and rainy, as dark as his mood. She took slow sips of cold tea in a cracked cup while examining another notice of collection. Light, 4,000. Gas, 3,000 and little, he murmured, passing his finger the lines. And not to mention the late fines. The cell phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. Lydia knew who it was, the collectors. They called every day, sometimes several times. At first, she tried to explain, asked for a deadline, promised to pay. Now I simply ignored it. My God, when will this end? He whispered, keeping the device in the drawer. The gate of the entrance range. Roman returned from another unsuccessful attempt to fix his 10-year car. Entering the kitchen, shaking the wet jacket, soon saw the mother's face. More accounts? He asked, sitting ahead. What else could it be? She answered with a gesture of discouragement. Look, arrived from the bank. Your car repair loan has been late for a month. They threatened to pledge our assets. Roman rubbed his forehead. At 30, he looked like a 50 man, worn out by his life. After college, he changed his job a dozen times. Now it was the salary, sometimes the boss, sometimes his colleagues. The mother always supported him in layoffs, believing that something better would appear. But as he sought, it was necessary to survive, eat, dress, go to interviews. Did you fix the car? She asked. They said they need an engine reform. 150,000. Roman shook his head. Without the car, I don't get to work. Where to get 150,000? Lydia felt that family tightening on her chest, the feeling that there was no way out. Romanzinho, can't you get another loan? Mom, nobody else lends me anything. My reputation is destroyed. They were silent, each dipped in their thoughts. Outside, the rain hit the windows, and some dog barked in the backyard. Another ordinary day in a Russian family that lives from salary to salary and yet can never close the accounts. I'm going to work, Lydia said finally, getting up. Maybe Taisia Petrovna could lend something until the payment. For 12 years, Lydia worked at the local city hall. He started as a secretary, then became a public service expert. The salary was not large, 28,000 a month, but was stable, and the time, flexible. But lately rumors of layoffs and cuts were running. Read, they haven't talked about you, Nina Borisovna, a middle-aged colleague and a perpetually dissatisfied co-worker. What? They say our department can disappear. They will merge with another and cut half of the team. The leadership was late yesterday discussing something. Lydia's heart jumped. Losing your job now would be a disaster. With your age and formation, getting something new would be almost impossible. Ah, Nina, don't overdo it. It's just gossip, he tried to seem confident. Gossip, gossip. But Petrova is already sending resumes, he shook his head to his colleague. These days, better prevent yourself. All day, Lydia worked as an automaton. She answered people, filled papers, answered calls, but her mind was far away. At noon, he finally approached Taisia Petrovna, in the next office. Taisia, can I talk to you a minute? Of course, read, between. Ask. Borrowed money to a colleague was humiliating, but there was no alternative. He explained the situation, asked 10,000 until the salary. Taisia was silent for a long time, then shook her head sadly. Read, I wanted to help, but I'm tight. My daughter is in college, I send money every month, and I still have the financing of the country house. I understand. Lydia nodded and hurried out, feeling her face burn with shame. He walked home slowly, reluctant to face accounts again. He thought of the approaching layoffs, in debt, the uncertain future with Roman. He stopped in front of a supermarket showcase, looking at the prices. Even the essential was out of reach. At home, Roman was on the couch with the notebook, absorbed in something on the internet. Lydia thought it was another search for a job and didn't bother him. It went to the kitchen to prepare dinner with what it had: potatoes, onion, a little meat bought on sale. "Mom, you won't believe what happened today," Roman exclaimed suddenly. "What, son?" "I met a girl. At the Max Company event. Remember that he invited me? There was a colleague of his, Katia. He works in an NGO, helps orphanages, needy families. We talked all night." Lydia dropped the knife and paid attention. Roman has not been interested in anyone for a long time. After college, he had some passenger relationships, but nothing serious. Either their work did not please, or he was not ready for appointments. "Good, son. Tell us more." Roman approached, sitting at the table. His eyes shone from an enthusiasm that had not been seen for a long time. "She's different, mother. It's not like the others. We talk about everything, her work, my plans." "What plans?" surprised Lydia. "Ah, you know, those ideas I have. The e-commerce I want to open, the consultancy." Roman spoke with passion. She heard everything carefully, asked questions. "He said I have entrepreneur vein." Lydia smiled. His son was a dreamer, that was a fact. It had 1,000 projects, but few came out of paper. "And where is it? Where is it?" Roman lowered his voice, as if to reveal a secret. "So it is, her father is a known businessman in the city. Vladimir Igorevich Kramov. Have you heard?" Lydia frowned. The name sounded familiar. "What does he do?" "Construction, something with real estate. There's a house in Zaraki, a luxury car, but she's super simple. Nothing freshness." "What a wonder, son," Lydia said, though her mind was already elsewhere. After dinner, when Roman left to meet a friend. As soon as Roman left, Lydia Stanislavovna sat before the computer with a determination she had not felt for years. The fingers shivered slightly as he typed in the search engine, "Vladimir Igorevich Kramov, businessman." The screen was filled with results in seconds. He clicked on the first link and started reading, his eyes devouring each word as if they were precious pearls. Vladimir Kramov was not just any entrepreneur. He was the owner of Stroy Aliens, one of the largest builders in the region, and Novi Gorn, a real estate development company responsible for some of the most luxurious condominiums in the city. His assets included malls, high-standard residential complexes, and, according to estimates, a fortune that made the numbers on his bank account seem to change coffee. Lydia did not reach the end of the article. "I didn't need to." It opened some more tabs, photos of corporate events, reports in business magazines, family images. There he was, an imposing man with an Italian suit, a clock that cost more than his apartment, squeezing hands of politicians and investors with the confidence of who knows that the world revolves around him. Beside him, an elegant woman with calculated smiles and jewelry that shone even in low-resolution photos. And among them, she, Katia, the same girl simply and easily laughing she had conquered her son. Lydia sat back in Cade. Wrath, the fingers pressing the lips. A plan began to take shape in his mind, still hazy but intoxicating in his possibilities. A rich bride. It was the exit. The solution to all their debts, for the clear nights telling coins, to humiliate the phone when the collectors called. If Roman clinging to this girl, if she could really conquer her, if they got married. She closed her eyes for a second, imagining, the beads paid, a larger apartment, perhaps even a country house like the Kramov. Roman would have a stable job, thanks to the influence of his father-in-law. They would finally breathe. The ideas fired on all directions. "We need to prepare. We cannot receive it here, not so." He looked around the living room with disdain, the wearing sofa, the walls with peeling paint, the cheap dishes in the kitchen cabinet. "This is not good. We need something better, even if it is temporary. Maybe I could borrow from a friend, rent a space for a few days, anything not to scare the girl with the raw reality of her lives." He got up and went to the corridor mirror. The reflection that faced her back was merciless. 52 years, badly disguised grey roots, worrying that no cream could erase. I also need to get ready. I can't meet her parents like that. A sloppy mother would not inspire confidence in a family like that. Maybe a haircut, a decent outfit. The phone rang in the kitchen. Another unknown number. This time, however, Lydia answered with an almost genuine smile on her face. Hello, Lydia Stanislavovna Volgina? Yes, it's me. Bistrozyme Company. Your debt has been overcome for 3 months. The Lord is aware that. Listen well, she interrupted with a calm that surprised her. Soon you will receive every penny with interest. Until then, stop bothering me. He hung up before the man could answer and solve a laugh. For the first time in months, the future did not seem like a background abyss. Just help Roman not to ruin everything. He ran a hand over his hair, already mentally tracing the next steps. Tomorrow, I will talk to him. I need to know everything, how they met, what she likes, how her parents act. And, above all, how to hide our situation until it's too late to retreat. Outside, the rain continued to hit the windows, but Lydia no longer heard her. His thinking was elsewhere, in the life they could have, in the problems that would disappear as a smoke, the day his son would marry the daughter of a millionaire. Everything will work. Deep down, a topping of guilt was trying to emerge. After all, he was planning a deceit, a facade to fool a girl who, from what Roman had said, seemed sincere. But the voice was weak, muffled by the despair and promise of an existence without tightening. Roman is smart, he repeated to herself. He will make her happy. And money. Well, money is not everything, but without him, happiness is in half. Dinner scene at the Karmov house, continuation of persuasive and immersive style. The meeting with Katya's parents took place on Sunday, at the family's country house, a place that made Roman swallow hard as soon as the taxi stopped before the forged iron gate. 2 floors of stone and noble wood, gardens that looked out of a magazine, cars that cost more than their university education. He borrowed his tie, feeling the cold sweat on his back. Katya was waiting for him at the entrance, with a dress that enhanced her natural elegance. It doesn't look nervous, he thought as she squeezed her hand with an encouraging smile. Don't worry, she whispered, as if read your thoughts. My parents are good people. You will see. But when Vladimir Igorevich appeared in hall, with his tightness of his firm hand and look that seemed to dissociate bones, Roman understood that good people did not mean easy to impress. The man Tin. There is the presence of those who were used to running meeting rooms, and his wife, Alla Viktorova, moved with the grace of those who had never needed to worry about the price of nothing. Dinner started with safe themes, the weather, the latest news, Katya's summer plans. Roman responded with measured phrases, trying to seem either anxious or very indifferent. Until Vladimir Igorevich put the fork and stared at him directly. Roman, Katya mentioned that you have interesting plans in the business world. I would like to hear more. The air seems to have been sucked from the room. Roman felt his palms damp, his throat dry. He began talking about his projects, the e-commerce that was still just a draft in the notebook, the contacts with investors that were nothing more than unanswered emails, the opportunities in the IT market he barely understood. The words were fluid, rehearsed, but Vladimir Igorevich's eyes were narrowed with every vague response. And what would be your initial capital for these enterprises? Asked the man, taking a sip of wine as if the question were casual. Well, I'm still evaluating financing options, Roman stamped. The market is unstable, so I need to be strategic. Vladimir Igorevich nodded, but something in his gaze, a shadow of disappointment, perhaps, made Roman's stomach to turn. He knows, he thought. He already knows everything. The invitation to a private conversation in the office was not a surprise, but a confirmation. Between 4 mahogany walls and bookshelves full of books that probably cost more than his rent, Vladimir Igorevich served 2 glasses of whiskey and went straight to the point. Roman, I'm a frank man. My daughter is all I have. I won't give her someone just because she thinks she's in love. I love her, Roman said, and for the first time that night, it was sincere. Love does not pay bills, said Vladimir Igorevich, turning the amber liquid in the glass. I did my homework. Several loans, delayed debts, 8 months without stable work. This is not life I want for Katya. Roman tried to protest, but the words died in his throat. I'm not here to judge, the man continued, a short and sharp voice. But if you hide it from her, what else are you hiding? A relationship based on lies does not last. I was going to tell you, Roman lied. I just wanted. Solve things first. At the expense of my daughter? The question was a blow. She deserves to know now who is getting involved with. If she chooses to stay, great. If not, at least it was an informed choice. The way back was a blur of guilt and shame. Katia, oblivious to everything, talked excited about how her parents had liked him. I think you made a good impression, she said, leaning his head on his shoulder. Roman smiled mechanically, but inside burned. She doesn't know. You don't know your father unmasked me. I don't know I'm a fraud. And when he got home, Lydia Stanislavovna was waiting for him with a smile of expectation, a smile that for the first time he didn't have the courage to return. Lydia Stanislavovna's eyes burned with feverish expectation. Then, how it was. Did they like you? He asked, his handy hands adjusting the shawl on his shoulders. Tell me everything, Roma. Roman sank into the kitchen chair, the jacket still shoulders, as if ready to escape. The fingers drummed nervous on the worn formica table. Everything is complicated, he murmured, avoiding his gaze. Complicated? The mother's voice broke into a breath of panic. What does that mean, Roman? He swallowed hard. The words came out like glass chips. Her father knows. About projects that do not exist. About debts. Above all. Lydia Stanislavovna's face sprained as if someone had sucked the blood from her veins. She retreated, leaning on the sink as if the world had leaned under. You are. So, it's all lost, he whispered, his lips shaking. He will ban the marriage. It will move Katia out of you. I don't know. Roman ran his hands on his face, as if he could erase the shame stamped on him. He advised me to tell her the truth. He said she should decide. No. Lydia Stanislavovna struck the table with her palm, making the cutlery jump. Roman, my son, if you tell, she leaves at the same time. What a rich family girl will want to tie yourself into a man sunk in debt. They will laugh at you. Let's become a joke for these Ramovi. But if I don't tell and she finds out on her own? He closed his eyes, reliving Vladimir Igorevich's penetrating look. It will be worse. Or she'll never find out. The mother grabbed her wrists, her fingers sharp like claws. He may well decide not to get in. It may be testing you, Roma. Seeing if you are enough man to overcome it alone. The following days were a torment. Katia was still the same, sweet, attentive, as if nothing had changed. But Roman saw ghosts in every smile of her. Does she know? Did her father tell? Or are you just waiting for me to kneel and confess? Doubt eroded him as acid. Until, on a Friday night, as they walked through the park under the yellow lights of the posts, he could not stand it anymore. Katia. His voice failed. He stopped, forcing her to turn to him. I need to tell you something. What, Rodnoy? She wrapped her arm, her face lit by Luna. It looks so serious. About us. About me. He took a deep breath, as if to dive into icy waters. I didn't tell you everything. Her smile froze. The fingers loosened in his arm. What are you talking about, Roman? I haven't had work for 8 months. The words gushed like blood from an open wound. And I have debts. Great debts. Those projects I told you. They were just dreams. I have no money to start them. Katia retreated as if he had pushed her. The eyes, once hot, now squabbed him with a coldness that froze him to his bones. So, all this time you lied me? It wasn't a lie. It was omission. He reached out his hands. Katia, I wanted to change. I wanted to be the man you deserve. But I was afraid to lose you. You have changed my life. Without you, I'm nothing. Roman. She released her hand, stepping back. The pain on his face was a knife. It's not about money. It is about confidence. How can I believe you after that? Give me a chance. He fell to his knees halfway, regardless of the eyes of the few passers-by. Marry me. Now. I will fix everything, I swear. Just don't leave me. Katia stared at him, his eyes wide, as if he had lost reason. Are you serious? His voice was a thread of voice. After all you just admit, do you ask me to marry? I know it looks crazy. The tears burned in his eyes. But I love you, Katia. In truth. And I'll drag myself on the floor if necessary. Just don't get me out of you. An eternal silence extended between them. Roman could hear his own heart beating like a hammer against his ribs. Until, slowly, she nodded. It's okay. Her voice was firm, but her eyes sparkled. But with conditions. No secret between us. Never again. And you will get a job and solve your debts. Alone. Interest. He pulled her to him, burying his face around his neck, breathing his perfume as if he were oxygen. I'll make you happy, Katia. I swear for everything. When he got home, Lydia Stanislavovna was waiting for him at the door, his fingers cheering the apron. Then, did you tell? I told. Roman first smiled in weeks, the chest weight finally relieved. And I asked her to marry. She said yes. Lydia Stanislavovna's scream echoed through the corridor like a bell. Roma. She hugged him hard enough. To break your ribs. That means she really loves you. Oh, my son, this is a miracle. Yes, Mom. He returned the hug, but a shadow went through his eyes. But now I need to get a job. I need to start resolving this really. Of course. She waved with her hands, already lost in her own thoughts. But first, the wedding. Before she changes her mind, we have to officialize everything. Contract, papers, everything. Roman opened his mouth to protest. Wasn't it too early? Shouldn't it first stabilize? But the brightness in his mother's eyes shut him. She was radiant, as if the sun was born just for her. And he? Well, he didn't have the courage to turn off that light. Not now. Not when, for the first time in months, the future did not seem like an abyss. He supported his son on his lap with a quiet smile while the child, curious, pointed to the candy on the shelf. Lydia Stanislavovna's heart contracted as if someone had tightened him hard. She. The woman her son had loved. The woman she had removed with her reckless words, with her stupid greed, with the illusion that money could buy happiness. And now there was Ekaterina, radiant in a way that Lydia had never imagined possible after that day. There was no shadow of resentment on his face, not even a trace of the pain that Roman had caused to him. Instead, his eyes shone with peace that only those who were forgiven or who forgave could carry. The husband, a man of serene stance, put his hand on her back with such a natural gesture that it hurt just to see. That was what Roman could have had. That was what they could have been. Lydia felt her hands shaking as she passed the card at the terminal. The balance was enough narrowly, but what really choked her was the certainty that while she told coins to survive, Ekaterina had rebuilt a life she had helped destroy. The boy on his ex-fiancée laughed, and the sound was like a knife in the chest of Roman's mother. He could have been my grandson. This child, with his light curls and pink cheeks, could have called her from Barbobolica, could have run toward her handmade drawings, could have filled her days of meaning instead of that bitter loneliness that now consumed her. Next, he called the box, breaking Lydia's trance. She dragged her feet out of the supermarket, the plastic bag cutting her fingers. The cold afternoon air hit his face, but it was nothing compared to the ice that was formed in his soul. 2 years. 2 years dragging on as a shadow of what was out as Ekaterina, her Ekaterina, the woman she had dreamed of as a family saving, flourished without them. Roman didn't know. He never knew that Lydia, in his moments of insomnia, sought news of her on social networks, who kept newspaper clippings about the foundation that Ekaterina helped manage, who cried to see photos of her marriage to that man, a respected lawyer, son of a judge. A man who would never have to lie about his name to get a loan. A man who would never let his mother humiliate her bride in public. Lydia turned around the corner, her eyes burning. The street was full of hasty people, laughing, living while she was just another old with a cheap bag and a past that pursued her as a curse. Mother. The voice came from behind, hoarse, broken. She turned and saw Roman leaning against the wall of a building, her beard to do, her eyes injected. He held a brown bottle in a paper bag, and the smell of alcohol exuded from it like a rotten perfume. "What are you doing here?" she asked, more reflection than for real interest. Roman laughed, a sound without joy. "The same thing as you, probably. Trying not to think." Lydia looked at the floor. There was nothing else to say. There were no excuses that could fix what was broken. There were no words that could return the time. "I saw her," Lydia murmured, finally. "Ekaterina. She's fine." Roman frozen. For a second, she saw something in her eyes, a spark of pain so pure that she almost knocked her down. "Did you turn your head to see?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Or just looked as you always do, as if it were your right?" Lydia did not answer. Because the truth she would never have the courage to admit, was that she deserved every second of that suffering. Because, deep down, while Ekaterina was going ahead, she and Roman were arrested that day forever. He, drowned in alcohol and repentance, she, counting coins and memories as if they were the same thing. And the worst, knowing that if they had another chance, she would do it all over again. Not for greed. Not for the money. But by the illusion that this time, things could be different. The little boy pulled his mother's arm gently, his eyes shining with expectation. "Mom, can I get bullets?" The voice was sweet, full of the innocence that only childhood knows. "Of course, my son," said Ekaterina, the smile illuminating her face without makeup, her hair loose in an unpretentious bun. She wore a wide pregnant clothes, but it was as if she carried inside her not just a baby, but a light that neither time nor the wounds of the past could turn off. Lydia Stanislavovna was paralyzed, watching the scene as if it were a living picture of happiness that once imagined for herself. Ekaterina paid for shopping, exchanged accomplices with her husband, kissed her son's forehead. An ordinary family, choosing yogurts and bread on any Sunday. "Need a bag?" The box repeated impatiently. "Ah. Yes, thank you," Lydia murmured, the trembling fingers holding the change, her eyes still attached to that image that hurt like a knife. It was then that it happened, what she feared the most. Ekaterina turned. For a second, their eyes met. The recognition was instantaneous, a flash of memory, followed by a flushing of shame. Ekaterina hesitated, as if he wanted to say something, but then lowered his eyes and rushed his step toward the exit, dragging her husband and son as if he wanted to escape not only from there, but from the past that Lydia represented. Outside, under the light rain that was beginning to fall, Lydia saw Ekaterina being helped to get in the new car, her husband adjusting her son's belt in the rear seat with a delicacy that made the chest of Lydia burning. "This would be Roman," he whispered, the words getting lost in the wind. The bus took 20 minutes when she revived every detail of that meeting, every Ekaterina gesture, every proof that the other's life had followed ahead as he rotted in remorse. When she came home, the smell of sour and sloppy beer received her. Roman was scattered on the couch, his kneaded shirt, his eyes injected, the chin to make. "Where were you?" he grunted, without taking his eyes off television. "In the market. Purchases." Lydia passed him, the plastic bags grinding between his fingers, and went to the kitchen. "Give me money." The extended hand, the dirty fingers of nicotine. "There is no more, Romula. Just enough to spend the month." He laughed, a dry sound, without joy. "Always have. You hide. I need to see the guys." She looked at her son, or rather, what was left of him. The young dream, who 2 years ago spoke in marriage and future, was now just a shadow, a man broken by alcohol, guilt, the certainty that his life was over that night. "Roman, enough of drinking. You need to get a job, rebuild life." He turned to her, and in her eyes Lydia saw not only anger, but the despair of who knows that there is no more return. "What work, mother? Who will hire me? I'm the town joke." Roman Bat, the one who almost married the millionaire's daughter. "Don't talk like that. How it is. Ntano. How should I talk?" He got up, staggers, and went to her. "Do you remember what you said that night? 15 million. 15 million debts that would disappear. Remember?" Lydia lowered her head. It was always the same accusation, always the same words, like a scratched album that I kept playing. "I didn't want to." "I didn't want what?" "Magnet, I just thought about money." But I loved her, Mother. For the first time in my life, I really loved it. Roman approached, the heavy breath of beer. Do you know what's worse? She would have forgiven me. We would have surpassed together. But her greed, her need to show off, to show others that we were rising in life, that she didn't forgive. Never. The tears ran off unmitigated. Lydia had heard it all before, but the pain didn't diminish. Forgive me, son. You can't, Mom. Don't go back. He took the jacket and left, knocking on the door. Alone in those 4 rented corners, Lydia sat in the armchair that was all that left of her old life. About the table, a yellowish magazine with a story about the charity background where Ekaterina worked. Project coordinator Ekaterina Sontseva announces a new initiative to support vulnerability families. Solfsiva. She had married. It had closed that chapter forever. In the erased mirror of television, Lydia saw her reflection, a woman aged before time, dressed in cheap clothes, her shoulders bent by the weight of choices that could no longer be undone. Across the wall, the neighbor's family had dinner, laughs, dishes beating, the normal noise of a life that was following. Lydia remembered that day at City Hall, when Nine Borisovna spoke of the budget cuts, and she, so certain that everything would be resolved, so convinced that the rich relatives would be her shield. Now, Nine still worked there, winning her modest 20,000 rubles, happy with her stability. While Lydia counted on the end of the month. Roman came back late, drunk. She helped him lie on the couch, took off his shoes, covered it with a beaten blanket. In sleep, he murmured something, maybe a name. Ekaterina. Lydia was awake, reliving the night when a sentence, said in ecstasy and champagne, had destroyed everything. 15 million. Now our problems are over. At that moment she had thought she was making a compliment, showing gratitude for Ekaterina accept Roman despite her debts. But what he did was reveal the naked truth, that for them she had never been a person, just a solution. Now, 2 years later, Lydia understood that her fault was not just for what she had said, but from what she had taught. She had created Roman to believe that debts could be ignored, that there would always be someone to save the situation, that responsibility was a burden to others. He had only followed the example when he hid his problems from Ekaterina, when he bet a marriage would solve everything. And when the opportunity appeared, neither he nor did she become ashamed in that. On the contrary, they thought fate finally smiled at them. But fate not only smiles, also punishes. Lydia didn't sleep. When the sun was born grey over the city, she knew that that day would be the same as the previous one, and the next, and all who would come. Because some words cannot be removed. Some mistakes have no repair. And some lives, once broken, are never the same again. That damn gift was recorded in the memory of all who heard him, an eternal reminder of the price of greed and loose tongue at the times that should be sacred. A year later, life in that rented apartment became unbearable. Roman sank once and for all, alcohol devoured his last charger job, and he began to disappear for weeks, sleeping in basements or in the house of strangers, coming back only when his body was asking for more poison. Lydia, now just falls. Tiny crime for changed, telling each coin like a sentence of life or death. The rental contract was about to win, the owner had increased the value, and she had not even half the necessary. It was in one of those November nights, when the cold already bit the bones and the darkness seemed denser, that Lydia sat at the kitchen table with the last crumpled notes in her hand. 300 rubles. The late light bill, the rent with 8,000, and the salary only a week from now. The phone rang. She hesitated, who would care but to bring bad news? But the insistent sound forced her to answer. Falls. A male, impersonal voice. This is the duty of the city's trauma. His son, Roman Volgin, was hospitalized. Are you the mother? The heart plummeted. She clung to the chair like the last salvation board in a wreck. Yes, I'm the mother. What happened? He's in the ICU. Fight on the street. Head trauma. Come as soon as possible. In that hospital corridor, between the smell of antiseptic and the tinnitus of the machines, Lydia spent the night in course. Roman was unconscious. Doctors talked about high-risk surgery, in irreversible damage. We will do everything we can, said the neurosurgeon, but the look was clear. Alcohol had corroded the son's body from the inside, And now, even if he survived, the battle would be long. 6 hours of knife and hope. Roman opened his eyes, but it was no longer the same. The dragged speech, the memory in shakes, the movements of a twice older man. "Do you have family that can help?" asked the social worker. "Taking care of him will require total dedication, and you need to work." There was no one. 3 years of fights, debt and bottles had burned all the bridges. While Roman recovered, if that could be called recovery, Lydia lost her job. The boss was patient for 2 weeks, but the third absence was the water drop. "I understand your situation, ifs, but I need someone to trust. The economies are over." The apartment was emptied, the belongings stacked in the basement of a distant neighbor, who for Piedade offered a mattress for 1 week, 2 maximum. 2 months later, when Roman was discharged, he could barely walk. The words came out pies, the eyes sometimes did not recognize her. But one thing had changed, the body rejected alcohol. Not by will, but by pure physical inability. "Mom, where's the house?" he asked, dragging the syllables when she took him to Aunt Neura's house. "There is no more, Romula. For now we stay here." But for now stretched like an endless shadow. Social services offered solutions, an asylum to her, a boarding school for him. Lydia refused. Roman was all his left. Until Aunt Neura, after 2 weeks, made it clear that charity had limits. The social assistance center was left, where the employee explained in a rehearsed voice, "There is a line for subsidized housing. But it's long. Years, maybe. And what to do there? We have vacancies in a temporary shelter. 1 month at most." The shelter was a shed with iron beds, mold smell and drunk shouts. Roman, fragile and disoriented, would not be able to protect her nor himself. "Mom, I remember there was an apartment," she murmured at night as she pretended to sleep. "I had, son. I had work, there was plans. Now there's nothing." 3 years earlier, she was a respectable employee, with a son about to marry a millionaire's daughter. The future looked like a cloudless sky. Now they slept side by side in dirty mattresses, with only poor clothes and the bitter memory of what they might have been. A month later, they were expelled. The space was necessary for other desperate. Then began life on the streets. In summer, they slept at square benches, train stations, buildings of buildings. Lydia Catava Latinhas and cardboard, while, to Roman, with trembling hands and confusing mind, could only get lost. When the fall arrived, it was clear, winter would kill them. It was then that Lydia swallowed her pride and returned to the social center. "Separated," he said, his voice breaking. "Put Roman on boarding school." I turn. The employee was straightforward, "You are not old for the asylum." But he, with disability documentation, can be accepted. The decision has tore it. Delivering the son was like signing his own defeat. But what was left? Pass the winter under snow, watching Roman freeze gradually? The day they finally resigned, fate cruel, as always reserved one last date. They were sitting on a bench outside a mall, where Lydia sometimes asked for alms. Roman, curved, hugged a plastic bag with his belongings. A car stopped. One family descended, a man, a pregnant woman, 2 children. Ekaterina. Now with 3 children, the oldest ever grown, a 5-year-old girl, and another on the way. "Mom, can it be ice cream?" asked the boy. "Of course, my loves," she smiled as her husband would take the children to the kiosk. "I'm just in the pharmacy, I'll be back." His eyes met. Lydia, dirty, with sticky hair and empty gaze. Ekaterina, impeccable in the elegant coat, the rounded belly under the fine wool. "Falls." The girl whispered. "Katiucha," said Lydia, the voice a wire of ashes. Ekaterina looked at Roman, dormant, to the torn bag, to the shakes of Lydia. Pity shone in his eyes before he could hide her. What happened to you?" Lydia laughed, a dry sound, without joy. "Life happened, Katienka. Remember that toast?" "Yeah. Your father was right, we shouldn't have spoken." "Now I understand, Katiucha," Lydia continued, her voice dragging every syllable as if weighing tons. "That toast wasn't just a drunk silly. It was a mirror. He revealed who we really were, People willing to use others as a staircase to get out of their own hole. And the worst thing is that we didn't even have ashamed of it. She paused, her fingers squeezing the fabric spent of the coat as if they wanted to crush the past between them. No, let me say something, you did well to leave. Roman would have sunk you next to us, and I would only have helped hold his head underwater. We lived at the expense of others, waiting for some angel to fall from the sky to save us. As parasites. Ekaterina bit her lip, her fingers shaking when she opened her bag. He took a pack of notes, not much, but enough for some meals, a medicine, maybe a hot night. Please, take it, he said, extending the money with an almost desperate gesture. At least to eat something today. Lydia looked at the banknotes like grey. Thank you, Katienka, but no. A bitter smile twisted his lips. We get used to what we have. Or rather, with what we don't have. Her eyes, once sharp as blades, now look like two dry wells. Go home. For your children, to your husband. You deserve this life. Built it. Ekaterina hesitated, as if he wanted to hug her, say something that meant decades of ruin in a sentence. But he could only whisper, may you find a way out. There is always one. And then, before the voice broke, tomorrow I take Roman to a place where they will take care of him. I find a way. He turned before Lydia saw the tears dripping, but the old woman heard the muffled sob in the scarf while Ekaterina walked away, the jumps beating the asphalt like hammers in the coffin of a past that would never return. Mom. The voice of Roman, hoarse with sleep, cut silence. Who was that? No one, cynic, Lydia lied, caressing her hair as if she could erase the memory of the scene with a touch. Just an acquaintance. That night, in the shelter, the disinfectant and hopelessness, Lydia relive every second of that meeting. Ekaterina shone, no. The only for the wool coat, but for something untouchable, the peace of who knows that he is loved. He had everything a woman dreams, a table waited for her family, laughs that didn't have to be forced, a husband who looked at her as if she were the only safe haven. And all this could have been from Roman. It could. If she had silenced her mouth 4 years earlier. If, instead of seeing an walking wallet in Ekaterina, he had seen a daughter. If he had helped his son rise by himself instead of teaching that the world owed them something. His love was real, Lydia saw Roman's eyes whenever he spoke of her. But greed was stronger. A 30-second toast, a stupid joke about 15 million, and that's it. The future of 2 young people became dust. The next day she took Roman to boarding school. Mom, don't go, he whimped, his fingers spilled into her arm like claws. I'll be good, I swear. Shish, Romok, she lied, stroking her wet face. It's just for a while. I need to get a job, a place for us. Then I get back to you. But both knew. In his eyes, Lydia saw the same terror she had felt when, child, left her alone in the orphanage, the certainty that temporary was just another word for abandoned. And when she turned to leave, she saw him in the window, small and lost, waving as if she still believed she would come back. 6 months later, Lydia survived nozzles, washed bathrooms, separated recyclable waste, slept where luck allowed. He visited Roman once a week, and each time it was like seeing a ghost. The body had gained a little, but the eyes remained empty. He asked for the house, the life of before, and she made up excuses, while inside he shouted that that life no longer existed. Until, on a grey day of October, he stopped in front of the place where the corner market was before. It was now a shining facade office, with gold letters announcing some company that would never have hired them. He remembered the first time Roman spoke of Ekaterina, how his eyes shone, as he spoke of the plans, the dreams. And she, instead of rejoicing, already calculated, how much does she have? How can we use this? If only I had applauded that love. If he had helped his son to be worthy of her instead of turning him into a beggar of affection. If I had not seen a solution in that girl, but a person. The toast was not a mistake, it was a confession. Proof that for Lydia the lives of others has always been a bargaining chip. Now, years late, she understood, no one owes anything to anyone. Each one carries their burdens, pays their debts, reaps what they plant. But this wisdom had come like a train after the wreck. He dragged his feet along the sidewalk, the bag with rags weighing more than lead. Ahead, only uncertainty: where to sleep, what to eat tomorrow, how to survive to the pension that may never come. Meanwhile, in another neighborhood, a family gathered for dinner. Ekaterina served the soup, her husband helped the children with the lesson, and their laughter warmed the house as a fire that never erased. The life that Roman could have had. If, that night, 4 years earlier, his mother had simply silent. Because some words are like bullets, once fired, there is no way to recover them. And some choices destroy not only the present, but all the possible futures. That damn toast would echo forever between the two families, a reminder that greed and stupidity can burn to the ashes which is most precious, the chance of being happy. And to love without calculating the price.